Hi everyone.
G'day, and thanks for tuning in. Whether you're watching this live or later, we appreciate it, and we hope that this challenges and encourages you and helps you to experience more of who Jesus is. Yeah. I once had the privilege of being involved in a team that was teaching people to abseil. And abseiling is simply when you use a rope to descend a face, and in this case, it was a vertical face. And in the city that's closest to us, the city of Sydney, there's a pretty famous landmark that you may have heard of, the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of that, yes.
And so the goal was actually for the team to abseil off the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And so we had set up, there was an area of grass, and so we were taking people through the basics so that they knew what they needed to do. And then my particular role, I was the dispatcher. And so I went up the bridge, and I assisted in setting up and making sure all the anchorage was fine. And then I was responsible for making sure that each of our participants was safely clipped in. And then down they went into the rope, about 70 odd metres into the water below. And I was standing there watching, and at that time there was an enterprise going, and I think Bridge Climb. I don't know, have you heard of them?
I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't done that climb, but...
And so they arranged for people to walk across the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And while I was standing there sending all these people into the water, a couple of groups went past. And I remember one guy, he was wearing, because they wear these grey jumpsuits and they were clipped in. And at that stage, it was quite boring. Like they were just walking on a footway underneath the road. So, you weren't really up on top of the bridge just yet. And when he saw us, his shoulders kind of pulled back and his face lit up, and he goes, "Oh, wow." And he goes, "How much did you have to pay to do that?" And because I was doing work, I said, "A lot less than you did, mate." And he said, "Could I have a go?" And I said, "Yeah, mate, you go down the bottom, do the training, we'll put you in." Well, knowing full well that, of course, he couldn't go in. But he kind of struck me as the guy who was going through his life looking for just the next buzz. The next buzz. And I've been in that place too. Like I've done a whole list of stupid things in my attempt to satisfy my urge for an adrenaline. Maybe you want to drop us a comment if you're an adrenaline junkie out there. Maybe even tell us the craziest thing that you've done. And for me, like even at the end of that day, I actually then just went, "Oh yeah, we're done here," and jumped on the rope and down into the harbour. So it was a bit of fun. It was actually a little bit scary. The last 5 metres you dropped into the water not really knowing and what was under the surface of the water and knowing that the harbour had a reputation for sharks. But people, I think, we want to experience as much as we can out of life. And whether it's adrenaline, you may acquire other experiences in your life. You may be someone who enjoys simply the experience of reading a good book, maybe, or enjoys a good cup of coffee, a bit of a foodie perhaps. I mean, have you ever been on a bit of a quest to get experiences?
I think the experiences I liked, I've liked doing abseiling things when I've done it with you. So those, I didn't really do a lot growing up, and then just with you. So that was really good. But I think things I really enjoyed doing were my experiences of like holidays, and then taking as many photos as I could to try and keep the somehow carry those experiences with me. Like, I've travelled around to lots of different countries and seen a lot of stuff, and I think it was like just wanting more of that.
Travel is definitely a big one, isn't it? And I think when we accumulate experiences in our life, I think that's a good thing. They've done studies that show that when you are younger, if you have a diverse range of experiences, it actually sets you up to then be a good decision maker later on. The flip side of that is those experiences can often be an escape from your life. I'm going to abseil off the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and then I've got a story to talk about for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I've got an adrenaline rush that makes me forget about some of the other challenges in my life. Yeah.
But then it fades.
Yeah, and it can be the same with travel.
Well, I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah, the same. Like, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're doing it for those reasons, and sometimes that is what I was doing, it's like, when can I go away again? Like to escape a few things. But, the me that I was kind of trying to escape from was still the same me that was, in Germany or in Paris or, wherever. So, yeah.
Man, yeah. Hearing you say that, there's a band I used to follow, Weddings, Parties, Anythings, and they sang this song, and they said, if it did not work in Melbourne, it will not work in Berlin. And they were talking about the difficulty of like trying to use an experience to help a relationship to survive, when the reality was they just needed to work on their everyday relationships. And really that's what we want to focus on tonight, is talking about the everyday experience. Now we're going to draw some inspiration here from Matthew chapter 9. And this is what it says. It says, as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at his tax collector's booth. Now, this is happening in a place called Galilee, which at the time was kind of in the northwest. It's where it was kind of the fringes. It was the main capital was down south, and these people lived kind of on the geographic edge, but they also lived on the cultural edge, that they were open to the influences from the Syrians from the north, the Greeks, and just a whole range of other influences. So they were really on the borderlands, and it's here that we see this guy, Matthew, going to work. Just, here I am, my job is to collect taxes. Now, just a bit of background here. If you read through Luke chapter 5 or Mark chapter 2, they'll talk about someone called Levi. It's only Matthew that describes this guy as Matthew. We think that they're the same person. But this is someone going about their everyday. And for a tax collector at the time, they would have set up their table somewhere, often in the center of a village. Or if harvest was going on, they would have gone to the harvest fields. They would have been accompanied by 2 Roman guards. And their job was just to sit there, and people would report, get the money, and then they would send that back on. So this guy is living his everyday life, just going about it. Now, as we talk about his everyday life, I'm pretty sure that you and I, for most of us, we don't have a job that means we're surrounded by guards. But I wonder what your everyday is right now. We had a chat around this table earlier, and those who are here, everyone could say, oh yeah, I get up regularly at this time. I have breakfast at this time, or I skip breakfast. I need to be at my first appointment or my job at this time. We have this rhythm of our lives. I know mine. On a good day, my alarm goes up and I want to pack my esky, and then I want to get off. I want to get to the gym before I then drive to work, get to work 15 minutes before I need to start, and then launch into the day. And you probably have a similar routine. And sometimes you can do crazy things to break out of that routine. For most of us, I think our life is actually defined by our everyday experience. And you can see that most of us will spend 40 hours, maybe even more. I read a statistic that said that for a lot of people, if you're an employee working in a job, you work 7 hours, which is nearly an extra working day unpaid. And when you consider that, how many hours are in the week? 140 odd?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bit late for maths for me.
Yeah, well, what is it? 140 plus 168 hours.
There you go.
168 hours. And so when you consider that you're probably spending 70 hours of sleep, If you're then spending 50 hours at work, that leaves maybe 20 hours of life left to live. We are defined, whether we like it or not, by our everyday experiences, by having somewhere to go, like Matthew was. And that it's even in the everyday that our life can change course. Because what we read here is that Jesus walks up to this guy, walks straight into his workplace, and he says, I want you to follow me. Now, I don't know where you're watching this right now. Perhaps it's not at work. Maybe it's in a bit of leisure time that you have. But I wonder, have you ever had that experience where you have felt Jesus step into your life? Just like Matthew did. And you're sensing this call on your life. It's a dramatic thing. I remember I was in the middle of a career. I was actually working as part of defence at the time. And I was just going about my everyday routine. And before I went to work, my habit was I read the scriptures. And I read this passage and in the book of Lamentations, and it talked about someone who had lived a pretty silly life and was pretty disappointed looking back. And I could really relate. Like, even as I read those words, it brought to mind some pretty questionable decisions that I had made in my past. And in that moment, I was like, what have I been doing? And then there's the next line, and it says, yet this I'll call to mind, and therefore I have hope. It is because of God's great love that we are not consumed. His compassions are new every morning. Right in the middle of my everyday, Jesus stepped in. And if you're watching this, clearly you are questioning, is there more to life? You may have had some church or faith background before. You may just stumble across this. But if you're still tuning in, then you are wrestling with the question, is there more to life than this? Am I more than just the sum of my experiences, these moments? And I want to tell you that just like we've read here, that Jesus can step into your life, that it's possible for you in your everyday to experience the creator of the universe. It's possible for you to have that. And we read here that Jesus says, come follow me. And so Matthew, in the middle of his workday, he actually gets up and leaves. Matter of fact, someone else describes it like this. He left everything at once. Did you want to? No,
I was just like, it's
and I think,
huge.
And for some of us, actually, this little encounter that we're reading, it can be anxiety inducing. Because
you might be feeling, is that what God's going to ask me to do? Like, leave everything all at once. But sometimes he's going, follow me, but in what you might think is still the mundane, the everyday.
And sometimes we look to deal with that anxiety by saying, I'll get to that in a little bit. And that may be, I'll get to that after I've finished writing this email. But it may also be, I'll get to that at the end of the day. I'll get to that at the end of the week.
Or the end of this season, maybe.
Yep. And we're talking about work, maybe the promotion. I'll get to that after this next kid arrives in my family. And the problem with that is that I think God moves and there is a moment. Like, we are finite beings that we live through time linearly. Whatever time you're watching this, minutes are going to elapse. Those minutes aren't coming back. And we have moments in our lives that we don't get back. And to say, I'll get to it, sometimes means that those moments slip away and that the energy that we feel in the moment actually dissipates or gets spent on something else. Other times it can lead us to question, did I really hear that? Was that really is the creator of the universe really getting involved in my life?
Yeah.
And that can actually increase our anxiety because we then kind of are uncertain and we just, again, let it peter out. And of course, there's always the option too that people just go, oh, no, I'm not interested. Yeah. But if you're watching this, I want to tell you that the way to respond is just like we see in Matthew, to turn yourself toward action. In the face of uncertainty, have the courage to act on what you believe God may be saying to you. What I love about this, and a little bit of backstory here, is that when you're following this, at some point there's a list of 12 of Jesus' closest associates named. All right? And as you're reading the way that Matthew tells this story, there's actually a few of those associates are called to follow Jesus. We call them the disciples, but Jesus approaches them and says, I'm picking you, come. I want you to follow me around and learn from me. They go. There's at least 4. This guy, Matthew, there's no record of him wandering around searching for anything. There's no record of him leaving his work. Matter of fact, this is what we read. He's turned up to work. Jesus has stepped into his workplace. He doesn't know who this guy is. He's probably heard the stories chatting to his mates.
So he's like, maybe that's this guy.
But he's got to make a decision in the moment. I've got to tell you, that's what faith looks like. That if you are someone who wants to follow Jesus, that faith looks like making a decision in the moment with incomplete information.
Yes.
And you just go, God, I think this is you. I think this is a move towards love and justice. I think this is a move towards hope and beauty. I think I'm going to do it. And you see that right here in this story that Matthew shares this with his friends. That he has this experience, he makes a move, and then his friends, he just goes, well, hey, this is my life. Like, this has happened to me. This has happened to me. And because of that, these people's lives were changed. Because of that, we're reading like this. Like, it's quite possible that we wouldn't be reading this that we're drawing inspiration from right now. And I want to tell you that it is possible to encounter the creator of the universe in your everyday. That there is no need to wait for one day. There's no need to wait for someone else to step in. That there is no need to think, oh, things will be better at some point in the future. But that the moment to take a step of courage, the moment to take a risk, the moment to respond to what you think may be the voice of the creator of the universe is right now, right in the middle of your everyday. And if you're watching this, then I think this is your moment. You know, we read the beginning of Matthew's story here. We're not here to discuss it, how it ends. We're not here to kind of set out your life for you. What I want to do is invite you to take a courageous step of action. A step of action that will lead you on this journey of following Jesus. A step of action that opens up your heart and somehow mysteriously the life of the creator of the universe becomes entangled with who you are at the deepest level. And if that's a decision that you're ready to make, we're just going to pray a very simple prayer that's going to unite these two lives. And that is simply, Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life in the middle of my everyday. As I go to my workplace, as I attend to my responsibilities at home, whatever it may be for you. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life right now in the middle of everything that's going on. And if you're ready to pray that prayer, then let's do that right now. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. And if you prayed that simple prayer, then in a way that I cannot fully explain to you, you are going to experience something of the love and the life that spoke the universe into existence, something of the love and the life of the Jesus who stepped into our world, who was rejected and crucified and rose again. And if you prayed, we would love to support you in any way that we can. So please drop us a comment, send us a DM on our social media channels. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.